Hello, hello, people in on YouTube. All right, I'm gonna have to work on that intro, but let's just get into this. All right. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the quality of the camera. I don't have a camera. I'm using my webcam, and if I see some success with these videos, I'll invest on a better webcam so that I don't look like I'm filming this on a toaster. But um, I'm going to explain to you the esoteric conceptualization of God, or at least what we would call God, but technically, well, I'll have to get into it in order for you to understand, but you wouldn't technically call it God. By calling it God, you kind of, mm, it's just not accurate. Now, this idea, this concept, this conceptualization is present in most um, mystical traditions, from Kabbalah to Sufi to Tantra. I can't pronounce it. Vedanta, Buddhism, so on and so on, right? Taoism. All right, so let's just get straight into it. You see, whether you're spiritual, religious, atheist, whatever, we have these conceptualizations of God, and usually we look at God from this perspective where it's a anthropomorphized being or a personified being, where it's a man with a beard and he wags his finger when you touch your pee-pee, or it's a woman with, luscious lips and the what do they call it? Yanni. Oh, feminine power, right? Now, technically, these are deities, gods, right? And some people will see these as literal entities that exist and are external from us and can affect the reality in some sort of way. You can have relationships with them. Some people see these more as some sort of archetype that can be worked with and embodied, and that energy or um, idea can be actualized within yourself so that you can become more like it in its God state. So it's kind of guiding you towards your higher self, right? Or at least imprinting this concept onto your higher self so that you can be more like this specific thing, entity, right? Now, the thing is that all of these entities, regardless of their external or internal, they are manifestations. So we ourselves are also manifestations. Everything is a manifestation. Everything that exists within the universe is a manifestation. So the idea within most esoteric and mystical traditions sees the supreme or the purest form of God as a something beyond all characteristics, traits, attributes, something that can't be understood or explained. Because if you was to witness it, you technically wouldn't be witnessing anything. There's nothing to be witnessed. There's nothing to grasp onto. There's nothing to describe. This is like void or nothingness. In Kabbalah, which I'm mostly familiar with because I practice Hermetic Kabbalah, this would be the idea of Ein or Ein Sof. Now, Ein Sof is limitlessness. So this is the infinite potential. This is something that possesses the potential to become all things, but this is before form, before it's manifested. So this is the potential, and from that potential emerges all things. But even this potential is still it's unmanifested, but it has an element of manifestation because we can understand it. We can say, well, this is potential. It's not physical, it's not tangible, but it is understandable. It's something that is limitless, infinite, and it possesses the um potential to become all things. Now, aim, the step right beyond that, is nothingness. This is not nothingness like empty space, but the absence of space, time, physics, chemistry, matter, light, energy, everything. It is it, 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 So, like, if you was to imagine nothingness, you might think of a black screen, like all black. Even that is a thing, because black, even though being the absence of a color, is still, you can conceptualize blackness, right? We're talking about see-through. Imagine if what you was witnessing was see-through, but there's nothing beyond it, and you're not even aware of yourself. So you lack the ability to even acknowledge that you're not looking at anything. So this was pure nothingness. From this nothingness that is completely unmanifested and have no qualities, within it lies Ein Sof, which is the infinite potential. And then this Ein Sof, this infinite potential, had some sort of spark or something happened that caused it to rupture, or expand or something like that, and then we have Ein Sof, you or I can't even pronounce that, Ein Sof Or, which is limitless light. So this is the first manifest. This is not necessarily a manifestation, but it technically is a manifestation. It's like an intermediary stage. It's the first light, before things became manifested. So imagine the universe being in a singularity, and that first moment of expansion when it's all just light, and then from that light emerged all of these things, right? This light is energy. From that energy emerged matter, and so on and so on and so on, right? So, it's pure light, mm, and then it just continues down the descent of manifestation, and then became matter, and we have, whatever the fuck, right? Now, in in most traditions, there is this concept, even in Islam, specifically Sufi, but if you read the Quran, there are talks about Allah not being like men, not being like the physical realm, being beyond all characteristics and traits, and cannot be explainable. It's ineffable. And in Taoism, we have the idea of the Tao. The true Tao is the Tao that can't be named. If you can name it, then it's not the true Tao. The Tao would be this Ein Sof, this emptiness. In Buddhism, we have emptiness, the teaching of non-self, non-being. This is this nothingness, right? Now, this is the supreme. This, no matter which way you want to look at it, whether you want to look at it from a spiritual perspective, where this is the supreme um, source of all things, and if you want to look at it completely secular and atheistically, you could just remove the labels of God, deity, this, that, all of the spiritual stuff. You could just remove that and say there was nothingness. Within that nothingness lied some sort of potential, something. There was something, we don't understand it fully. All we know is that whatever this maybe energy, maybe we can't even say energy or light or any of that, because this was singular. And if you would like to imagine something being singular, literally, meaning this is the only thing. So there's nothing outside of it and there's nothing within it. So there's no way to differentiate it from anything else because there isn't anything else. So there is no edge, there is no, this is my face, and if I go 2 inches in, I'm inside my head. Like, there is no edge. There is no space where you start and something else begin, like where you stop and something else begins. So, in a state of oneness, there's noneness, there's emptiness, there's void. One thing can't exist on its own, because if there's only one thing, then there's no way to differentiate it from anything. You wouldn't be able to tell its size because technically it doesn't have a size. If it's only one thing, then this one thing is technically, could be the size of a grain of rice. It could be the size of the entire universe. We wouldn't. It's impossible to know. So, from a scientific point of view, that I I can try to figure that out, but this is mostly for people that are interested in esotericism and mysticism. So I'm not going to go too deep in atheistic understandings of this. But I hope you kind of understand what I'm trying to say. Um, Ultimately, what we're looking at is this state of oneness. Because it's one, nothing outside, nothing within, it becomes none, it becomes empty, it becomes null, it's void. But there still is potential for all things. Now we have this eruption, this uh, um, this sort of expansion that led to all manifestation. Now, this so from a esoteric point of view, this nothingness is the supreme, and from this supreme source emerged all things. All things, animate, inanimate, existing, and non-existing. Now that might sound weird, non-existing. So if I was to tell you, imagine a unicorn in your mind. Now I'm not going to get into whether unicorns are real or not. Like, I don't know. If you've had some spiritual experiences and you think unicorns are real, awesome, great for you. But in this within this context, I'm assuming that unicorns aren't real, and but you can imagine it. You understand the concept of what a unicorn would look like. Maybe it has wings or not. It definitely has a horn, looks like a horse, blah blah blah. You can imagine it. Now, assuming that it doesn't exist, somehow you're able to conceptualize something that doesn't exist. Well, that is also a emerging thing from this void. So everything from matter, light, energy, um, all of these things, the laws of the universe, physics and chemistry, these things, they all emerge from this, but also these ethereal things like emotions, thoughts, imagination, those things that you can imagine. These are also things that emerge from God and the Supreme, and every like in the Bible it says that we're made in God's image. Therefore, this supreme thing, we are all pretty much its image. Like we are its manifestation. It itself is unmanifested, but everything that exists is a manifestation of it. So technically, this is what God looks like when it manifests into the world. And I am just one fracture, one fragment of God, experiencing God through this particular point of view. And you are God experiencing God from your particular point of view. And just like the source, all of the manifestations can also create and things emerge from us. So your imagination, the things that you visualize in your mind, are also manifestations of the Supreme. So we have all physical, ethereal, metaphysical, everything emerges from this Supreme Source. Now, this includes all gods and entities. Entities, whether they are external actual entities with self-awareness and consciousness and the ability to make choices for themselves, or whether they are archetypes and things that exist within us, they are also manifestations of this source. So it's like saying that all paths lead back to God, because whether you're a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Taoist, a Sikh, if if you it's what's it called, Ifa, Lakumi, uh, Palo, uh, whatever, any African traditional, religions, whether you're like a Norse pagan, a Celtic pagan, whatever it is, if you believe in the horned god, or, whatever, these are all manifestations of the Supreme, and they are expressing a specific mask of the void. So, no matter which god, so put something that would be very useful to read would be the Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita presents himself as this supreme, but he is still a manifestation. He is still a Avatar, right? Uh, but he claims that everything is within him. All gods, angels, demons, devils, this, that, and the other, geniuses, genies, jinn, all of these spirits, everything lies within it. So no matter who you worship or what you're doing, you're actually worshiping a mask of the Supreme. But uh, there is a distinction because you're worshiping or working with or interacting with a specific facet of it. So within, because everything is a manifestation, there's space for contradiction and paradox. So there can be a group of people that worship one god, which is a mask of the supreme, and a group of people that worship another god that is a mask of the supreme, and these two gods doctrines are completely antithesis to each other, right? So you can have um, two religions or spiritual practices that believe the exact opposite of each other. And these are both aspects of the supreme nature, the supreme uh, uh, reality. Hold on, guys. Now, I'm going to make more videos specifically when it comes to specific deities, saints, angels, demons, so on and so on, and how does that work. And I'm going to be making more videos going deeper into the philosophies behind these things, because you would be surprised how esoteric some of these philosophies are actually, even though they present themselves to be secular. When you truly understand the esoteric teachings of uh, spirituality, um, without being captured by dogma or by superstition, um, you start to realize that there is a lot of esoteric teachings that within mysticism and esotericism and occultism that coincide with philosophies, and even ideologies and political movements that currently exist. So we're going to be talking a lot about philosophy, psychology, sociology. We might hint at some history, like talking about a little bit of certain cultures and certain aspects of ancient civilizations. Just for just for like to paint the picture of who these people were and how and why they believed what they believed. But I'm gonna leave that for another video, because right now I want to just make this specifically about this understanding of the supreme. Now, so everything is this manifestation of this supreme. So therefore, it doesn't actually matter which god you believe in. Now, the thing is that your belief is powerful when it comes to these situations. So if you sign up for a specific religion, and that religion has specific rules, and you truly subconsciously, internally believe that you have to follow these rules, and you break those rules, you might be trapping yourself mentally and psychologically, um, because you pretty much signed up for that, right? So now, if you don't believe it, now there we can talk about. All right, well, if I don't believe in hell, then I won't go to hell, right? So it kind of sounds a little silly. If you believe in hell, then you will, but if you don't, then you won't, and we would have to get a little sticky, kind of go into the weeds to really unpack that. But even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that you go to who you worship. So if you want to worship Krishna, then when you pass, you go to Krishna. If you worship angels, you go to the angels. If you worship the demons, you go to the demons. If you worship Yahweh, you go to Yahweh. If you worship Allah, you go to Allah. And I personally believe that Yahweh and Allah are separate entities. They're not the same. Um, if you believe in Ein Sof, you probably go into Ein Sof. Uh, there's all of these ideas. Now, Um, okay, I guess I should talk about this because it is poignant to this idea of the supreme. A lot of these spiritual and mystical traditions talk about reunification with God or reunification with the supreme or with the source. So people would have you think that uh, there. Okay, so if you believe in reincarnation, so you're born, you live, you die, you reincarnate. There's a lot of different traditions, specifically in the Eastern traditions and also in Judaism, because reincarnation exists within Judaism as well. You will continue reincarnating, and people would see in the Eastern traditions, this would be considered as samsara, and you're trapped in this cycle of death and rebirth. And you need liberation to exit from that. But what some people don't understand is that if you do exit from this reincarnation into the physical realm and you go into a spiritual realm, whether you go into a heaven, a hell, or some other type of existence, this is still life. You're still conscious. You're still a persona. The ego is still there. As long as you have a persona, as long as you see division between self and other, the ego is still present. Therefore, this is just another form of reincarnation. You're just not reincarnating on Earth. So this is not actual true liberation. So in Buddhism, we would talk about the idea of non-self, non-being. True liberation is when you dissolve, the ego is completely annihilated, and you dissolve into the Ein Sof, the potential, right? You're no longer a physical being. You're no longer an entity. You're no longer conscious or aware or able to understand or conceptualize or think or feel or anything. You simply stop existing, pretty much. Like like something within you kind of exists. There's the potential within you exists as this amalgamation of potential of infinity, but you yourself do not exist. If you believe in past lives, that doesn't exist anymore. You don't exist anymore. You're not conscious. Now atheists would say that, oh, this is just normal. Like when you die, you stop existing, and that's it. You're nothing forever. But from a esoteric point of view, this is actually what's liberation. So becoming unbecoming the self, dissolving the self, and reunifying into oneness, which is noneness, which is void, null, uh, non self, non being, would be true liberation, because in this state, there is no bliss. But only because you lack the qualities and characteristics and traits that would allow you to perceive bliss, which ultimately ends up making it true bliss, because in this state, there is no longer pain or pleasure, but there's also no awareness of pain or pleasure. So there's no pain to remember or run away from. There's no pleasure to miss or to run towards. There's simply no awareness. Without awareness, then pretty much there's just nothingness. You would never feel anything at all. And some people would find this scary or maybe find this as like evil or bad or something that you don't want. There's a lot of people in a lot of traditions that are specifically trying to live forever and become some sort of god entity deity that just persists forever. But I think that people don't understand what they're actually desiring when they do that. It might sound cool to be some sort of god and exist forever, but I don't think people really understand what forever means. Like, if you can look back at your life, let's say you're 30, 60, 7 years old, and you can tell all of the good and the bad and this roller coaster you've been through, this is like not even a drop in the bucket, like, not even a drop when you start considering, imagine you had to do this for 10 times longer. Instead of 7 years, imagine you had to do this for 1,000 years. And that's only 1,000 years. Imagine 1,000,000 years or 1,000,000,000 years. Now, when you really, really chop it up and say eternity, no matter how good it is, you're gonna be annoyed like a motherfucker by it at some point. Like, if the afterlife is just you getting your dick sucked for the rest of eternity, like at some point you're gonna be like, Jesus Christ, just stop sucking my dick already. It's I'm over it. Like I don't want this anymore. If it's happening for like several billion years, at some point you're just not going to want this anymore, right? So wanting eternity might sound like this really cool, like thing to achieve, but it's just a trap. So the real liberation is reunifying with the Supreme and becoming nothing. Um, now, now there, now what I haven't been able to understand is if the ego is truly annihilated and you're one with God, right? Um, at some point, we were all in that state. God was one, which still is one, but the supreme was oneness, was noneness, was void, and whatever of part of us that was there, we were all one. It was just one thing, right? And somehow things emerged from it. So there might be some sort of thing or something that makes it so that you can reunify with the divine, the supreme, and at some point you might reemerge again. So I don't know if that's possible, and there's no way of figuring that out. I don't know if once you merge with God, it's forever, or if it's just like going to sleep and waking up, you know, billions of years later on a different planet because this planet's already toast by then. So I don't know, but it is from my current conceptualization, it does sound pretty final. So if you're not the type of person that wants to stop experiencing, it might not be for you, but at least you understand what the conceptualization of deity, or not deity, but the supreme is, the supreme source. And our journey is to reunite with that supreme source and become one, and subsequently none and non-being, non-self, and dissolve into nothingness. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives you many options. He says, even if you worship demons, you're still just worshiping me, but you're worshiping a mask of me. So if you want to strive for apotheosis, deification, and become some sort of entity that persists after you pass, after your body passes, that is an option. We don't actually know if it's possible, but there are methods that lead you to believe that if you follow that method, you would achieve that. Um, Now, if that's your thing, go for it. If your idea of a good afterlife is just serving a deity and then going to that deity's heaven and being in its presence forever, go for that. It's really up to you. Like, you can pretty much choose whatever you want, but ultimately, um, just before you make any decisions, you should probably take a significant amount of time thinking about what it is you actually want. Now, if you're seeing this and you're like atheistic and you're just looking at this so that you can criticize it, like you think that there's nothing after here, so when you die you pretty much go to null anyways, because that's what you believe, like you're going to stop existing forever, and that's just what it is. That's just like, you don't have to do anything about it. That's just where you're going. So you kind of skip the line on all the people that are spiritual. Now there is a chance that going into null might not be as easy as that. Like, you might actually need to do something to make that happen. Now, my idea of that is, the mind is a powerful thing. If it comes to that point where you're about to pass and you're aware of it and you're clinging to your ego, this might cause you to persist because you're not allowing your ego to dissolve. You're holding on to it, you're anchoring it, and this might make it so that you wind up in some sort of afterlife, whether you enjoy it or not, right? We don't actually know. We just don't know. And personally, I think that I would desire to go to null and reunify with nothingness. But I'm not going to look at it from an atheistic point of view where this is just inherent. I am making a effort to undo the wiring of the self, the ego, so that when my time comes, I can let go of the person who I was and this character, this narrative, this whatever the fuck you want to call this, right? um, I am doing my work to let go of all that now. So when that day comes, I am ready to simply stop existing. And that's just me hedging my bets and making sure that I don't cling to anything when that time comes and truly let go and dissolve into nothingness. So yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna make some other videos talking about some other stuff. I kind of took a little too long on this one. Um, but well, I mean, there's not much else to say. Now, listen up, guys. If you thought that the information I was giving here is at least interesting or helpful or tells you something, if it did anything good for you, give this video a like, subscribe, watch my next videos. If I see there's movement here, I'm gonna spring for a new camera so that I don't look like a freaking, I don't know, mirage. Um, and I'm gonna be going into a lot of different things, mostly the intersections between mysticism, esotericism, occultism, and philosophy, psychology, and sociology. And we might touch on some sciences and arts and stuff like that. Not too deeply because I'm no expert on science. I know a fair amount, but um, nowhere near enough for me to have a really, really deep conversation about it. But all right, guys, take care and think about what do you want. Some people might have asked you, what do you want out of life? I'm here to ask you, what do you want out of death? Think about that. Figure it out. Mm.